Welcome to Sloppy Spoilers with your host, DT2. What's up, y'all? DT2 Comics Chat here for a special edition of Sloppy Spoilers, but not special in the way we wish it was. We are here to talk about the untimely passing and celebrate the life of one Kevin Conroy, okay? The definitive voice of Batman for a generation and now forever. Let me bring on my co-hosts. Let's welcome the head of the entire gang, Mr. Al Mega. Come on, Al.
Wepa, on a very low, low energy Wepa. With the memory of Mr. Conroy.
I'm going to say welcome to Steve Shadewing Sellers.
Yeah, this is kind of a solemn moment for all of us. I mean, he was Batman for a generation. I mean, he was doing this for something like 30 years, all over like all these different animated series and video games and all these other projects he was involved in. And if you were involved with Batman in really in any way in terms of TV or video games, you knew who Kevin Conroy was and you were affected by him. So this is a really tragic loss.
It really is, really is. Welcome to Johnny the Machine Hughes.
Wepa, so for me, Kevin Conroy is the voice that you hear every time you read a Batman comic. That's how it works.
That's right. That's right. So we're going to start off talking about specifically what Batman means to us. So I'll start out and I'm going to throw it to my co-host. Everybody that knows me or follows me at all knows that Batman is my favorite character, tied with Captain Marvel. But there's a reason I like Batman so much. The reason I like Batman is because life dealt him a terrible blow, a blow that would cripple most people and have them shut down for the rest of their lives. But instead of doing that, he balled up his fists and he said, "You just wait." He took all the resources granted to him by his tragedy, and he decided to become a terror to the thing that terrorized him. He decided to not be afraid of scary things by becoming a scary thing. And he dedicated the rest of his life to ensuring that what happened to him didn't happen to anybody else. And that's why Batman is my favorite. They say he doesn't have superpowers, but we know he's got a Wolverine level healing factor, else he would have been dead a long time ago. but Batman, inspirationally, didn't allow what happened to him to keep him shut down for the rest of his life. He decides to make a difference both in and out of costume. And the most ironic is not the right word. The most poignant thing is that Kevin Conroy was the same way. He was the same way, whether he was voice acting or in his private life, or if everybody talks about meeting him, he was the same kind of way. He decided to use the influence that life had given him and the voice that God had given him to make people's lives better through philanthropy, encouragement, and entertainment. So whenever you leave a legacy of nobody having anything bad to say about you, I would say, in just my opinion, I would say you've lived a good life. So let me hear you guys. Let me hear your opinions on Batman, the character, and then we're going to segue into Kevin Conroy, the man. Start with Al.
Hey, you know how I feel about Batman. I always mess around with you guys that he's this, they definitely OP him at times. Mm-hmm. But I say that in just to mess with you guys as fans. Batman is an iconic and amazing character, especially being just that a human being that could overcome so many different odds, and an honorable warrior at that. Doing what he got to do. He doesn't believe in taking lives. I mean, even though I'm a fan of those heroes that do that, I could respect the reason that he does not. And Kevin Conroy, man, he is that person too. He was a hero. I mean, he was, not just an amazing voice actor. He was also a rep for the LGBTQ community. So he was a warrior on that front as well. So he was fighting different battles in every different way. and he definitely was an amazing man. I had the opportunity to meet him in 2019. We check out that interview in a little bit. Amazing energy. And like DT says, you know, in just reading about everything that Kevin Conroy has done, not one person has ever in their life said anything bad about that man. You know, he's just like DT said, a philanthropist, someone that cared about community and helping others. There's even a story out there where he was working at some food shelter during 9/11, you know, giving out food to people that got affected, and you know, somebody had kind of recognized him, and when they, you know, he said, yeah, you know, yeah, I'm Kevin Conroy, the Batman. I think, oh man, you do Batman. And then you know, that dude went to the kitchen and he's saying, hey, dude, Batman is making your food. He's serving your food. So the car's like, get out of here, whatever, you know, bullshit. So then he does from the kitchen, he does the shtick, you know, the Batman voice, and everybody's still quiet for a moment, and everybody's like, oh shit, it's Batman. You know what I mean? So, and in that moment, even though it was a somber time and moment, you know, Kevin Conroy would lift the spirits just by being able to, you know, with his presence and that voice and that connection. Amazing man.
Absolutely. Johnny, thoughts on that?
So, being in the UK, everything's a little bit off kilter, right? So, when I was a kid growing up watching the Adam West Batman TV show, and we're buying Batman DC comics and Brave and the Bold and stuff, I remember looking at Batman 312 and the cover scared the living shit out of me. Pardon the French. It absolutely, there's this Two-Face cover and Batman's creeping up on him and stuff. There were times where I could not read Batman because it would scare me. Batman isn't about scaring me though; it's about scaring the bad guys,
scaring the criminals.
Batman,
that's right.
Yeah, exactly. So I manned up, man. All of like 7, 8-year-old, I manned up and I read Batman, and I absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, fell in love with this character, this strong will to do what he thinks is right. And that's carried on through the various movies, whether it's Keaton, whether it's Bale, you know, he's got that drive to do what he thinks is right. What that means for Kevin Conroy, I said it at the start of the show, man. Even now, I mean, you've got Conroy, you've got Dietrich Bader, you've got Romano, you've got Bale, you've got Affleck, you've got Keaton, you've got West. You tell me you don't pick up a Batman comic and you hear Conroy's voice. I play Injustice 2 on my mobile. It's Kevin Conroy. Every day I am reminded that Kevin Conroy is Batman. And that's regardless of the birthday message I got 2 years ago that my stepson Stephen and Katie, my stepdaughter, managed to arrange for me. You know? This is without a shadow of a doubt. This is how impactful Kevin Conroy is. My stepkids, who aren't particularly geeky, it has to be said, know how much he means to me.
Wow.
And did something like that a couple of years ago for my birthday. And you know what? It absolutely touched my heart. Those kids love me to bits. I love them to bits. They're my kids. And you know what? Conroy sort of encapsulated that whole idea. You know, Stephen, the eldest, he plays the Arkham games. Katie, when she was old enough, she played the Arkham games. They get to see what Kevin Conroy brought to Batman.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even if it is just a case of I can't leave the room until I solve this puzzle. It doesn't matter. You know, Conroy's Conroy. Conroy's Batman. And that's it.
That's right. I'm going to key in on a few things you said in a few minutes, but I want to give Steve a chance to go. Steve, thoughts about Batman and Conroy himself?
Yeah, it took me a long time to get into Batman as a character. I was always more drawn to the Bat family and to characters like Nightwing or the Cassandra Cain Batgirl, you know, those kinds of characters. But I think that in itself owes so much to Bruce Wayne and to Batman as a character, and also to one important facet of a character, which I think does endear to me. And that is that he may be this dark Avenger and he may have this really powerful archetype and, you know, he may be driven to this crusade for justice. But really what he is someone who is trying to fill in the hole the emotional hole left by the death of his parents. And one of the ways that he does this is by bringing in lost souls and orphans, and by being a father to them, and preparing them and giving them the opportunities he's had. He's paying it forward, and that always makes Batman a much more interesting character to me, because he has depth behind that. And Kevin Conroy, I feel, really did that well, because Kevin Conroy, to me, was able to do what most other Batman actors couldn't do, which is he was able to be Bruce Wayne and Batman, and he could slip between them effortlessly, with like flipping a switch. Nobody else could do that but Conroy. A lot of the live action Batmans, they're either really leaning to Batman or they lean to Bruce. But I never got that with Conroy. He got both of them equally well, and I think that's one of the reasons why he is about as definitive as you can get, maybe after Adam West.
That's right. 30 years. That's right. I feel the same way. I can't hear any other voice but Conroy in my head when I read Batman. Okay, next we're going to talk about our favorite iterations of Conroy as Batman. There is so much material to choose from Batman the Animated Series in '92 when we first meet him, to a plethora of animated films. He even made a live action appearance in CW's Crisis on Infinite Earths. He was one of the ersatz Bruce Waynes that was actually evil. I didn't particularly care for that. All of the Arkham City games. This man showed up again starting in '92 until the end. And so I want to talk about some of your favorite iterations. So I'll start with mine. If we're going to start with the animated series, I have to say Perchance to Dream and Over the Edge. I love Perchance to Dream because whenever you're dealing with AU stuff or alternate reality stuff, you can take chances, you can explore concepts, you can talk about things that you can't normally talk about in continuity, because that's one of the things that continuity does, to kind of rein you in. But when you're doing stuff like that, you can go for it. And both Perchance to Dream and Over the Edge in the third season just went to the wall. And I love, those are my favorite episodes of the animated series. And then in terms of the animated films, I'll have to pick Mask of the Phantasm.
Who doesn't pick Mask of the Phantasm? If you're not picking Mask of the Phantasm, you need to stop back. Stop watching Batman straight right now. If you're not picking Mask of the Phantasm, do one. Definitely.
That's right. Mask of the Phantasm is one of my favorites because, number one, it's the only one that even references the vow. But number two, it's the only one that shows a logical progression when Bruce had a choice and he realized that he himself was under the shadow of the bat and couldn't get away from it. And it does that so extremely well. And then Superman, Batman, Public Enemies showcases the contrast between the two of them and showcases their relationship and why they're actually friends. And so that's my favorite stuff. And then I like all the Arkham games, so I can't even go to that. Those are my top. Those are my top favorite iterations of Conroy as Batman. And it's one of those things where it's just like a Chris Reeve level of thing where you become the character, where you so embody what the character would sound like and do and what they stand for and what it means to people, until you go into class by yourself territory. And that's where he is now. So, Johnny, tell me some of your favorite iterations.
Right. Okay, so you've got to say straight off the bat, Nothing to Fear, Season 1, Episode 3. I am vengeance. I am the night. That's the phrase everyone loves, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the one. That's the one that 3 episodes into an animated series, you're like, yeah, it's Batman, yeah, whatever. And then you hear that, and automatically it clicks. You're
That's
there.
Right.
You believe it. From that point on, you are in this series. Now, the release date for the show in the UK was different. We started off with Red Claw, 2-parter, whereas everyone else started with Leather Wings.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until you get the box set, the DVD box set, that you actually appreciate how early on Conroy sets that indomitable statement, and you're like, I am in there. I agree with you. I love Over the Edge. I think that's a great show, great episode. I like the grave scene in Mask of the Phantasm,
Yes.
where he's giving it the whole, it doesn't hurt so bad. And my wife and I, we just watched this recently, and both of us, my wife's not a huge animation fan for a start, but both of us are just looking at this and we're just amazed by the amount of acting that goes on in that scene. And I'm going to throw a curveball at you. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Justice League epilogue, where Batman is sat on the swing talking to the I can't remember the character. Is it Ace? I think it is, from the Royal Flush Gang, and she's distorted reality and she knows that she's going to die.
Yeah.
And Conroy, Batman, just sits and hangs out with her, and you know, the pathos, the emotion, the things we don't automatically think about Batman. You mentioned it before, DT, how he brings in like other characters, like the kids, to fill his void.
Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely unbelievable. Even now, I watch that episode, I get goosebumps. But it's not just Batman. Kevin Conroy. You've got Batman Beyond. You've got the Batman from when he played the Batman of Planet X on Batman Brave and the Bold. When he played the Phantom Stranger in The Chill of the Night. The quintessential best episode of Batman Brave and the Bold. When he played John Grayson in the Batman show for Robin's dad. This is a guy that just encapsulates. He just loves being around the DCU. And if he can add something to the Batman mythos, then he is going to do that. There's no airs, no graces about the guy. If it helps promote the idea of Batman, he is so there. And you can see that through his body of work.
Keying in on that scene with 10 at the end.
10, sorry.
Who else could understand a child facing unspeakable loss?
Perfect. Absolutely great point to make, DT. Absolutely. You know, Batman's lived that. And not only has he lived that, he's lived that through the various Robins and the other kids that he's helped during that point. Conroy's emotional range in interacting with other characters is just fantastic. And I know Batman Beyond's aimed at a younger audience than Batman the animated series. I get that. I'm not a complete moron of this. But even so, you know, Grumpy Bruce is a great character, right?
Oh, yeah.
We all love Grumpy Bruce.
Yeah. You want your daddy or granddad to be like that for sure.
For sure.
All right, Steve, what do you think? Give me some of your favorite iterations of Conroy as Batman.
I can think of definitely a few. I think Mask of the Phantasm is a given. I mean, that is absolutely a masterclass in how to do Batman right. And it gave Conroy so much work to work with. In terms of Batman animated series episodes, I really like the Demon's Quest, where he goes up against Ra's al Ghul. And I will say also, I want to kind of give a shout out to the late David Warner, because that guy was a perfect Ra's. And he and Conroy were perfect against each other. Absolutely perfect.
Good call.
And I love the way that he played Ubu the whole time. Like, oh yeah, I knew what you were doing, because Ubu didn't let me pass that one time, and he wouldn't do it the first couple times. You know, things like that. And Conroy just sells it completely perfectly. So that's one. I loved Almost Got Him, where Batman's not so much an obvious presence, but here's the beauty of Conroy. You know, he a lot of times you can take Batman, largely minimize him and just give him a smaller role. But when he shows up, he is so memorable and he makes an impact. And I feel like that's really what he did in that episode, especially towards the end, where he reveals like he's been Killer Croc the whole time and he was infiltrating the villains while they were telling their stories, which I think was great. So that's another one that I really like. And on the father-son stuff, I think that Robin's Revenge gives Conroy a lot to work with too, because yeah, he's Grumpy Bruce a lot in that, but you know what's underneath that? A father who's scared for his kid, and that's why, and he can't communicate it, and he's, you know, and he struggles with being a father to Dick Grayson, and yet you know what's really driving him is that he wants to keep him out of trouble and to keep him, you know, from making the kind of hard choices that he had to make when he was that age. And I really love that. So yeah, I would say those, definitely the Arkham games, and you know, and also Superman Batman movie. where he and Superman kind of teamed up against Luthor and Mercy Graves and the Joker. I think that was a really great Superman Batman story.
That story wasn't even a kids movie. They advertised it like a cartoon. That story was deep, and that line against Ra's al Ghul was straight out of the comics. The same thing happened there. So that was an incredible translation. Al, favorite iterations of Kevin Conroy as the Bat?
Well, of course, everything, the animated series, the legend in that mother, but also different iterations because he's also very diverse in the animated universe, right? So he didn't just verse Batman. I mean, he was recently Merman in He-Man.
Yeah, that's a good shout.
You know what I mean? So, you know, he did other things. I mean, like Shadewin had mentioned, he was a Grayson in another show. In the Shazam short, he was Zeus. You know what I mean? So just that's what I respected of him. He was able to do so many different things. In Turbo, the cartoon, I don't know many people remember that. He was a stinger. I love the man. He like everybody says, he is the voice of Batman. There is no other. No one could replace him. I know a lot of recent cartoons have had new Batman voice actors. None of them. And I mean, none of them. Kevin, when you would see a Kevin Conroy is attached to a DC AU film, animated universe film, all right, yo, I'm gonna be all for this. You know, most people were taken aback when you see a new voice, you know, and kind of be, I don't know.
I agree with Alan. With this, by the way. Al's absolutely bang on right. Sorry to interject on this, but if I see Kevin Conroy's name listed on a Batman project, I am buying the shit out of that.
Yeah.
As soon as it hits the shelf, I am buying it. I don't care. You know, somebody else, I'm like, I'll wait till the reviews come out.
See how it goes. That's right.
Yeah,
okay.
That's what it is. That's Kevin, man. I'm gonna miss hearing that.
Oh, yeah. I want to shout out one other episode that I just remembered. Beware the Gray Ghost. Because that kind of sums up his fandom towards Adam West. And I kind of feel like nowadays people are giving that same respect to Conroy that Bruce gives to the Adam West character in that.
That's right.
I know no word of a lie. 3 episodes I watched with my wife this tonight before the pod. I watched Nothing to Fear, I watched the Grey Ghost episode, and I watched part of Mask of the Phantasm. There you go. Those are my 3 that I watched. I said, this is Kevin Conroy, sweetheart. Check it out.
Now, most super beings, most costume vigilantes, most superheroes are known for their more famous powers, but they always have powers that are low-key downplayed, like Sue Storm's ability to turn other things invisible. Batman, his low-key power that wasn't really on display anywhere but in Conroy's iterations, except we did have a little bit of it with Bale's Batman and Batman Begins, and that's his disguise ability. That's what we're talking about in Almost Got Him and Matches Malone and so many other places where Bruce was able to, again, transform himself into someone else and blend in around him, which was amazing, which speaks to his training, speaks to how long he spent out in the world learning how to master those different types of things. And most of the time people don't understand that Batman was around, you just didn't see him, you just didn't know it was him. And that was another power that he had. Now, I'm a personal believer, and this is just my headcanon, I'm a personal believer that before Bruce showed himself to the world, he memorized the entire topography, geography, and underworks of Gotham City. That's how he knows where to fire his grapple gun when he falls. You ever wonder how he always knows if he's in trouble exactly what to do? I think he spent quite a bit of time memorizing every place and getting sense memory of it, getting muscle memory of it. So there's no place in Gotham City you can put Batman where he doesn't know where he is. So if he's underneath the city, if he's fallen, or if he's whatever he's doing, he knows exactly where he is, which I always thought was, that's just my headcanon.
But that DT makes for a great treasure hunt. Because imagine, and then, you know, the day he needs it, oh shit, it's not there. Somebody's eBaying it.
Yeah. Now, Court of Owls explored that idea, which makes them such interesting foes because they're the only ones that knew the city like Bruce did. And they did do some of that stuff. And how would that get in your head if, you're swinging off a rooftop and you're like, oh, that building's demolished. Who did that? So, but yeah, so just another aspect of the Batman character that I personally enjoy. And the other aspect I enjoy is now, here's my answer to people who always say, why is he on the Justice League? Even Hal Jordan has called him out multiple times. Why is Batman on the Justice League? I'll tell you why he's on the Justice League. Because he's 10 steps ahead of you all the time. Because he has a plan to take you down because he understands how you think. Because he understands your strengths and your weaknesses. And you don't understand how much you're telling him about yourself all the time. That's why Batman was on the Justice League, because Superman, for all his power and his intelligence, because he's not dumb. Martian Manhunter, for all his powers, he has more powers than Superman, and he can read minds. Neither one of them are strategists.
Yes.
What do you do when you're in a situation where you're going to have to think your way out, where it's going to be mind over muscle? Okay? And Batman, that's the core of why he did what he did. So that in any situation, he'd be 10 steps ahead of what's going on around him, because whenever he's not on a Justice League mission, if they can't punch their way through, many times they get captured or defeated. They need the Dark Knight detective. Mm-hmm. All right, next up, what we're going to talk about is the impact of fictional characters on the real world. This is another perennial argument that we have. When I say we, I mean in the geek community, with people talking about, why do grown men, why do you love superheroes? That's just kid stuff. I'm like, it's not. I'll tell you why it's not. Number one, on a commercial enterprise level, it's a multi-billion-dollar franchise. That's not just children giving you multi-billions of dollars. Can't possibly be, number one. But number two, it's the inspiration that comes off the page, off the screen, into your real life. We saw that with Chris Reeve, and now we see it now with Conroy. So I'll tell you the ways Batman inspired me, and then I want to hear what you guys have to say. I already told you the first one. He inspired me to think, to use the old Kanagan, okay, to develop the Kanagan. The other thing that Batman inspired me to do is one of his greatest criticisms nowadays is that he's just a rich white guy that beats up people. That cracks me up every time I hear that one. But he used his wealth in public as Bruce Wayne for philanthropic efforts, but he used his wealth to create a unique arsenal that allows him to fight in any type of terrain. And he did all that without superpowers. He can fight in space, he can fight underwater, he can fight, just in the atmosphere, he can fight on ground. And who else can say that without powers?
Johnny.
So, what do you say?
Johnny could say that. He does the same thing underwater.
And so he inspired me by his creative use of his resources. And finally, what I'll say is, y'all have to understand that Lucius Fox was a retcon. Bruce invented all his stuff. He thought up the bat motif. He built all that stuff originally.
Yes.
They brought some stuff in later to help him have some help. But originally, all that stuff was his idea. And that inspires me as well. That's very common for Golden Age heroes, that when they got their motif, they made everything. They made the costume. Mm-hmm. They trained. They understood what they could do.
Yeah, part of the motif was, you're your own man, in creating your own shit.
That's right. That's right.
Can I ask a quick question then about this? Because you've kind of, if I may ask a quick question, sorry to interject. If DT, you're okay with Bruce creating his own stuff, Al, you're okay with creating his own stuff, and you're all right with the idea of Bruce Wayne being Batman, why do we need a second Batman? Why do we need Lucius Fox's son through a name change to be Batman? If everybody's okay with Bruce Wayne being Batman, why can't we just have Bruce Wayne as being Batman?
You already know the answer to that, because we live in the age of we have to have.
I also know the answer, that none of my friends are buying the second Batman book. Nobody. There is absolutely nobody touching that book with a barge pole.
We don't call Miles Morales Spider-Man. We call him Miles Morales.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, fair shout.
So yeah, no, you don't. This is another thing I've had to explain countless times.
Well, that was a great time.
There are some characters that are so iconic in what they mean and what they've come to mean and their place in pop culture lore until they can't be replaced. So you've got to figure out a way to stop them from aging. You got to keep around the original because you can't replace them. The Flashes are a family. And once they introduced the Speed Force, they expanded that concept. The Green Lanterns were always a core. Okay. But Batman is Bruce Wayne's idea. I'm like, you might want to try to read a comic one day and understand just his idea. Okay. He had a type of motif that would strike fear in the hearts of criminals. So, becoming Superman. Clark Kent is Superman. You can bring other Kryptonians and put them under a yellow sun, but Clark Kent is Superman because it's not just his powers, it's his heart, it's his attitude, it's his value system.
Dude, I'm with you on this. I absolutely totally agree with what you're saying. I absolutely get it. Clark Kent is Superman. Superman's the mask, not Clark Kent. Bruce Wayne's the mask, not Batman. I get it.
It's two different dynamics between the two of them. Batman was born when Bruce Wayne's parents got killed in front of him. And then Bruce Wayne became a bit of a mask, but the last son of Krypton is three people. He's Jor-El's son, Kal-El. He's Jonathan Kent's son, Clark Kent, and he's Superman.
He's always going to fall back to being Clark Kent. He's always going to fall to that Kansas good guy type thing. No matter, don't get me wrong, Jor-El has an influence, of course he does, but it's nature versus nurture on this one, and he was nurtured to be Clark Kent. Clark Kent without superpowers would still do the right thing because he's Clark Kent.
But Superman without Clark Kent becomes a dictator every time.
Exactly right.
Every time. You guys, let me know what do you think about the real life impact of these fictional characters? Start with Steve.
That's an interesting question. I think that these are iconic characters that live in the minds of people, and they have for a very, very long time. There's a reason this character has lasted for 80 years. It's because what the Batman represents has lasted as long as it has. And, and again, you can't really get away from Bruce Wayne. As much as I love Dick Grayson, he's only going to be Batman for like 5 minutes, and then he's going to give the thing back to Bruce and go back to being Nightwing. He's always going to be, Batman is going to be Bruce Wayne in the minds of virtually everybody, because that's the way that he's been presented over and over and again for 80 years. And, I don't see anything really changing that. But I do think that these characters and what they do is inspire. When these kinds of stories are well written, they inspire people. There's that element of escapism, but there's also the element of, Bruce Wayne fights for the future of Gotham. He fights for hope in Gotham. The idea that crime can end, or at least for a little while, there can be, some amount of peace. That's what he hopes to achieve. Creating order. With Superman, it's, I think, the idea that, by his example, being kind, being compassionate, and all of these other things that he is, he can inspire people, to be better than themselves. And I think these are the kinds of things that the characters stand for. That's what endures. That's what sticks with people. And when you have somebody like a Kevin Conroy who embodies Batman, so perfectly, where you get, Conroy was driven by, a lot of pain in his past, just like Batman was. And he's been able to use that to create a career, where he can inspire people, by being this character. And I think that that's what's really is stuck. And I think that this is, why Conroy's performance is going to last as long as it has. It is very real. It represents, real struggles that this man has been through. But he's exercising it through this role. And he connected with the role in a way nobody has before or since, and may not ever again. So that's the power of Kevin Conroy as an actor, and I think people are still going to be watching these shows, for a very, very long time, just because of that.
And the power of great stories. Al, what do you think about fictional characters' real world impact?
Real world impact. I mean, this is modern mythology at work. You know, that's what it is. We are building these stories to inspire. So heroes such as a Superman or a Batman, they are inspirational. Here are folks that, you know, in Batman's case, take matters into his own hands, as you said much earlier in the show, to assure that things like this don't happen. That's inspiring. It's someone that decided to create change and do something about it, and not just wait, you know, for someone else to do something about it. So that's what's inspiring about characters like Conroy. I mean, like Batman, and that's what Conroy did too in real life, and in that voice of his just inspires that. You hear that voice, man, your chest just pops up. You want to be Batman because that's Conroy you hear, and you know, and we just lost that. It's so sad. You know, it breaks my heart just thinking about the fact that we will not hear this man, you know, anymore, you know, other than in reruns. But heroes, man, you know, real life impact is that they inspire, especially when written well, and you give us those stories that actually, you know, we can in fact relate to.
Okay, that's going to be my next question, but I want to throw it to Bracy. Welcome to Jeff Bracy, our fellow Comic Crusader and Sloppy Spoiler host. Bracy, tell us what you think about fictional characters having a real world impact.
The thing about Superman is that he's raised to think of himself as a human being, even though he's obviously not. And I always liked the retcon after the Crisis, where he didn't automatically have his powers. He wasn't Super Baby, he wasn't Superboy, he was all that. So he got to grow up for a time feeling like one of us. And that's the amazing thing about Superman. That's why we can look to Superman for hope, because of all of his restraint. We see anytime that he does not have restraint, if it's the, you know, the off Elseworlds where it's like the son of Zod and Laura instead of Jor-El, how that's not a Superman. You know, he's a barely acceptable Superman. And so, you know, and that's the thing Lex Luthor misses about him. He misses the fact that, you know, he's always thinking alien, alien, alien. Superman's always thinking human, 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 despite what he can do. And that's what keeps him from being a god tyrant, is the fact that he has a humanity to him. With Batman, Batman is the flip side of that. Batman starts out powerless. We've all felt that at one time or another, whether we were just small children at the time,
Yes.
Whether we were disabled, whether we were experienced somebody who is stronger than us at a given time. Everybody experiences that in some way. Maybe it's somebody who's got authority above you, who's abusing it. So we've all felt that level of helplessness. He just takes it to the ultimate degree. And the genius of Batman is he's the Punisher done right. The Punisher, as much as I like that character, is as cathartic as it is. And like, why are we bothering, like, you know, putting murderers in jail? Why don't we just off them? Because we do have an element of due process, and we know we do want to absolutely prove you're guilty. Now, mind you, Frank does his research, and you know, his kills are fictionally considered righteous. But this is why all the superheroes rail against him, because he is a killer. He is waging a war that only he has declared, and so he steps outside the bounds. Now, I know Al he favors the superheroes who take that lethal action, and I get it, man. I get it, brother. There's some sick folks out there.
Yes.
But I've explained to people online before. They've asked, like, how do superheroes work? And I think what makes them work, why they're allowed to exist, is, for the most part, they don't cross that line. You have that outlier. So up until that point, they are effectively making a citizen's arrest, if you will. And the public and the police can handle that. So Batman is the guy who does it right. Even if he does break somebody's face, arms, legs, whatever, he's not killing them. He's disabling them. And I think one of my favorite depictions of this is The Dark Knight Returns, after Batman's been gone, 10 years or so. And Bruce Wayne has to get back in the saddle, and Gotham has become the shithole it used to be before he left. Even with Commissioner Gordon doing everything he can, the corruption creeped in as Gordon got older as well. And so when Batman returns, what do we see in the story? We see people start to get inspired. People start to stand up for themselves. People no longer ignoring the plight of their neighbors. You don't have to yell fire to get somebody to come out and help you if you're being raped, because rape in a big city is like, oh, well, that's none of my business. You know, so I always love that story for that Batman put fear in the criminals, but he also uplifted the common man. And I think that's one of the things we all want to be, even if we don't have superpowers. Batman lets you know that you can do something. And he has, in fact, inspired. There's a number of people out there who dress in colorful costumes, and they go out and they do these public watches. You know, they're real life superheroes, and they report crimes, and they have their little cell phones, and people get to know them on the streets, and they say, hey, you know, there's crack dealers around here, or there's stuff going on over here. And these guys will cruise around, and they'll video with their phones. They'll collect evidence. They'll call the cops in, you know, get the proper authorities in on it. And some of them, I don't know if I would go this far, some of them have even risked themselves with gun-toting assailants. And they go that extra mile. I don't recommend that out there, everybody. Like, if you're just Joe Schmo, you're not some guy who's trained, you know, in Tibet and China and Japan and all this stuff. You know, that's a whole different sort of animal there.
That's why DT wear gloves. That way his knuckles don't swell.
Yeah, you don't want to leave the evidence of the broken knuckles or the bloody knuckles. But yeah, you know, like, we see how this culture has inspired people to take that level of action. I'm sure it's inspired others to become soldiers or to become police officers. People who grow up with this, you know, looking at characters like Superman or Captain America, like, you know, I want to stand for what's good and what's just and what's right. And, you know, the people who are inspired by Batman are like, I want to see justice done.
Okay, now
so,
that
yeah, it has an effect.
If I may, I kind of agree with everything that's been said. Absolutely. But the question for me is the impact that Batman has on me. The impact is determination. That's what it is.
Yes.
Batman's determined. And behind that is his emotion. You don't get to see it that often. You mentioned Robin's Reckoning. Yeah, there's a whole host of different Batman stories where he wears his heart on his sleeve. And I think one of the joys of watching Kevin Conroy's performance over the last number of years is how emotive that his Batman can be.
Oh, yeah.
DT mentioned the Batman Superman movie. You feel that when he falls for Lois Lane. You actually, it doesn't feel like it's a bad thing. It feels like, well, of course he'd go for Lois Lane. It's the emotive, the way he feels about Robin, the way he feels about Tim. You know, all those things are driven through emotion, and that emotion might be fear. It might be fear of what's going to happen to him, or whatnot. But that self-determination, the idea that I am right, I know what I'm doing, that emotion for the people that he cares about is tantamount. And I think Conroy, as I said, his performance in any number of different avenues shows that level of emotion. And I would like to think that I am that person who, when Al gives me a deadline to get a goddamn review done, I will get my Batman on and get that review done. And I am that person who will maybe listen to people and take on board their thoughts and kind of deal with it on an emotional level. So yeah, there you go.
Now,
If I can add one last thing.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Given that you brought that up. And for Conroy specifically, now we see other Batman in the course of events. You know, Dick tries it on every now and again when he has to, but it's like Steve says, it's not his thing. He's always had his own identity. We've seen that Terry McGinnis will take it on, and he, like Batman, ends up having the tragedy that is the impetus. But unlike somebody like a Jason Todd, you know, he's not driven by wrath. And we see, I think, you know, Damian, when he surely will take on the mantle as the son of the Bat, he has all the drive, but none of the tragedy. So Bruce ends up being a unique character in having both these things, and the drive and the tragedy is balanced by his need not for vengeance, even though he says, I am the knight, I am the vengeance. He's really driven by justice, unlike Frank Castle, who is driven by vengeance and is actually looking to catch a bullet one day because life is miserable for him. But when you look at Conroy's performance, in Batman Beyond, I love seeing how he's gotten to a point where he can't be Batman, and decades of watching the city become awful once again has left him embittered. He probably figured one day he would just die on the job and he wouldn't have to see what became of the world after Batman, but he did live to see it. And watching Conroy take the character who he's had mostly in the prime of his life, if you will, and have to build him back up from this bitter old man and to somebody who himself is given hope by a new Batman that he can now continue the fight in whatever way he can. That was a remarkable performance.
It was. Now, you guys keep saying 10 things I want to riff on, but I'll go back to my original thing, is that, vigilantism, this is another defense I have ready for those who criticize that. But, whether you like it or not, man's laws can be circumvented. You can't circumvent God's law, but you can circumvent man's law. Man's law is not designed to bring justice. Man's law is designed to draw legal lines. Then those lines have to be enforced, and we know they're not enforced the same for everybody. So there's no justice. So when you're talking about why does Batman do what he does, and why does Commissioner Gordon work with him? Everybody always wonders, if I was a commissioner of Gotham City, I'd bring him in, I'd do this, I'd do that. I'd be the law and order candidate. Why does Gordon work with Batman? Because he understands there's some threats going on in this city that we can't deal with, but you can. There's some answers that we need that we can't get, but you can get them. And there's some things that the law ties our hands in doing, but you can do them, okay? Because remember, it's designed to draw legal lines, and it's designed to have a punishment and reward system, but it is not meted out the same. It is therefore not justice. So Batman says, I'm going to let the people know that flaunt that on any side of that line, because Batman's not afraid of Darkseid. Batman ain't afraid of nobody, okay? And so if you're, whatever it is.
He is Batman.
And not crazy too, because for real. But he's not afraid of anybody to let him know that he'll bring justice or die trying. So here's what I'm going to throw out to you guys, because y'all have said about 10 things I want to talk about. But good writing. Some of the best stories in comicdom have come from Batman, Daredevil, and Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah.
And why do you think Batman, is it the skill of the writer? Is it the depth of the character, or a combination of the two? Why do you think you can come up with good stories for Batman over and over and over again, writer after writer after writer, decade after decade? There's no decade of Batman stories where we can't find gems. Why is that? Tell me what you think. Go ahead, Johnny.
I like to think that the idea of good Batman stories is based on the fact he has no superpowers. So therefore, the challenges that he faces are more personal, the more I don't want to say cleverer, but the more intense. I mean, you think about his rogues gallery. There's only probably Clayface, the second Clayface, that's got superpowers. But so every adversary he comes across is a little bit more intense, a little bit more personal. When you put him in the Justice League, that's when he comes across the dark sides and so on. I like to think that the idea with Bats is that it's that, I've said before, that determination, that strength of character. It's kind of like if I read a Peter Parker story, if I read a Spider-Man story, for example, I know as soon as Peter Parker pulls on the Spider-Man mask, he's going to win. I absolutely know that, right? I enjoy Spider-Man stories for the grief that Peter Parker goes through. Daredevil, it's that whole, I want to do the right thing, but it's not the right thing. Oh, but it is the right thing. But something tells me it's not the right thing. and that's an interesting vibe for a little while. Batman, on the other hand, he's like, this is the right thing, and he gets knocked down. He gets absolutely knocked down every time, and yet he finds it in himself to think, no, enough is enough. I am done taking this crap. I will stand up and I will fight back. And that's what he means to Gotham City. That absolute, I am done, I am resolute, and I will stand for my city.
All right, Al, what do you think?
Man, it's Batman. When you have writers too and artists, combination of these are people that have overcome odds, right? To reach, that a platform where they can even write about Batman. Now they're writing about Batman, which is the character that overcomes odds all the time. I mean, what more inspirational than that? There's definitely a combination of a writer and a character with so much depth. Like Johnny said, he's just but a human. And so this human faces these human problems in a superhuman world. And how is he able to handle them and overcome them? When you have these teams that are just in tune with who the character is, it just makes for a great dynamic storytelling. Something that not just is a great story, but it's also something that inspires you as a person. Like, oh shit, you come out of a good Batman story and come out, wow, I can't believe that Batman overcame that. Shit, if you could overcome that, what can I overcome? So, Batman that's where that inspiration comes from. And when you have a great team of a writer and artist that have also overcome odds, again, in their professional life to get, to where they got to be able to write Batman. So imagine that. It leads to nothing but great human storytelling. It's not just superhero, but it's human storytelling.
That's really good. That's really good. Really good. Steve, what do you think? Why is it so easy to come up with good Batman stories decade after decade?
I think that what you're talking about is a circle that feeds into each other. I think a lot of it is the archetype. The archetype of the Dark Avenger is very, very powerful. It is very primal, and I think it heats people on this really gut animal level. And I think that's part of it. And some of it is the depth of Batman's character, which we talk about. He has a lot of different layers to play with, and that inspires writers. And when the writers use that and they take the character to the next level, that inspires other writers to tell other stories about him because you're adding to the character and it kind of goes in a circle. I think the same is true of Daredevil. I mean, Daredevil really doesn't have too many bad points at all because, again, he draws on a very powerful archetype. He draws on, he's got a deep character and all of that comes together. So I think a lot of it is that. But I think the other thing is, and you have other characters that really have a powerful archetype as well, like Superman. I think the archetype is really why so many writers, even writers that don't necessarily, you wouldn't think would get Superman, like a Garth Ennis, completely get him. Because they connect, because the archetype speaks to them. The idea of this strange visitor from another place who's fitting in to a place that he wasn't born in, and then giving back. I think that speaks to them. And in the same way, I think you get a lot of that from Batman because, he speaks to the cynicism. He speaks to, that primal desire to fill a hole after loss and avenge that loss in some way. And I think that a lot of that just comes together in so many of his great stories. And on top of that, with Batman, he also has the greatest rogues gallery in comics. And you can't overlook that. The writers that we were talking about created so many great villains and such a really interesting setting in Gotham City. You could literally do several different runs and not repeat too many villains most of the time, and it would still work because he's got so many iconic villains. You can do entire runs without focusing on the Joker at all.
I wish
you could do Bane or. Yeah,
I wish would that. Yeah,
I wish they would.
Oh, wait, there was a point in time where I was collecting Batman, where for fucking the whole time I collected Batman, I didn't see one Joker story. That was like a 5-6 year run. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the amazing intro Jim Starlin did with introducing KG Beast. That was an amazing run. This amazingly long arc that introduce such a classic villain right there who sadly doesn't get used properly these days. But man,
I like him as a Nightwing villain, but I get your point.
Bring back the Condiment King. Bring back the Condiment King.
I almost spit coffee all over my computer thanks to you.
Yeah, but I mean, Batman as a character is somebody that you can create many good villains from because he's got so many facets to draw on. I mean, you can mirror, the fact that he's a rich guy, and you have villains like Penguin. You can draw on the evil version of the archetype. I mean, how many evil Batmans do you have? From Prometheus to Ra's al Ghul to all these other things. You have, the evil clowns that are the chaos to Batman's order. There are a lot of different facets to him that make for different villains, and so you can create different threats and different ways to challenge him. And I think that's another thing that makes a difference.
Okay, we are definitely coming back to that because we're going to talk about the villains. But Bracy, why are Batman stories so easy to write decade after decade?
Yeah, I have to agree with Steve on that particular point. Batman does have one of the most interesting rogues galleries out there. And let's face it, villains are really fun to write. I mean, and the more villains you got that are interesting, the more great stories you can tell. And Batman does have a selection of some rogues in his gallery that do have superhuman powers, like Clayface or Killer Croc, and to an extent Poison Ivy, because she's controlling plants, whether she makes the plants or not. So there's that, but he is like, until they came up with like Daredevil and Moon Knight to kind of balance him out on the Marvel side, he was like the most purely street level hero we get, because he's fighting a whole bunch of kooky dudes who are just as human as him, but twisted in all kinds of different ways. And I love that the writers keep coming up with new interesting villains, like Professor Pig or Scarface. Man, that was one of my favorites. This crazy dude with a puppet who thinks he's a mobster. What a terrific concept that is. But looking at Batman himself, you know how they say like there's no new stories. We stand on the shoulders of giants, and we try and stand a little bit taller and hope one day what we build will allow others to stand on our shoulders and continue to build this avatar of excellence, increase the mythos, leave it more interesting than you came to it. Batman has some terrific foundational characters that he pulls from. Sherlock Holmes. You see a lot of Batman's sense of justice in there, because Batman is very lawfully minded. To the KG Beast, for instance. In that classic story, the 12 Knights of the Beast, he did not try and arrest the KGB. So he realized this guy was so dangerous, he might actually kill me in this battle, and I can't risk him getting loose. So he locked him away in the sewers to die. He didn't tell anybody where he was. He wasn't taking the chance. He just, like, what happened to the KGB? He's like, you don't have to worry about him. And he just moved on.
So you see, Batman's a killer. He's a murderer too.
Batman, Batman says, I got this rule against killing. It's like, he's got it. It's kind of like the Batman movie where he says, he tells Ra's al Ghul, like, I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you. And he books out. So, Batman has his code can be a little bit flexible in his own way. So there's that. But you also look at, and Sherlock Holmes, if you read the stories like I have, you'll see there are times when he operates outside of the British law. He will take matters into his own hands in a way that satisfies his own determination of justice. And that kind of goes along with the reader. Even if Watson doesn't always agree, he does see Holmes's point. Next up, the character that really inspired Batman is Zorro, where we have the guy pretending to be one of the effete, one of the elite. And then by night, he's running around doing his daring do, and he's that sort of swashbuckler. Now, we don't normally think of Batman as a swashbuckler, but, Zorro means the fox. So we get into Batman's cleverness, his intrigue, his ability to plan ahead and to outthink his adversaries. And some of his adversaries are exceedingly dangerous in their mental faculties. When I think of Hugo Strange as one of my favorite underrated Batman villains, a guy who just figured out who Batman was and shows up in the Batcave and starts pretending to be Batman, just messing with Batman's whole deal. Terrific character there. And so you got that. And the last character I think really informed who and what Batman was going to be was, of course, the Shadow. Then we see this in later Batman stories where Batman, like the Shadow, starts finding allies and building this network of informants. Again, this kind of relates back to Holmes in a way, because Batman does do the disguise thing and learn about things in the underworld, and he had his urchins, his irregulars. But Batman builds a team. He builds a family. It's the Shadow. It's more of an organization of people who owe him. But there's that aspect where, like Zorro, Batman can give the downtrodden hope, but like the Shadow, he puts the fear of God into those people who are, who knows what evil. Well, the Shadow knows, and the Batman knows too. And I think with those ideas in play, you have such a rich and fertile ground to pull from. And even if you're coming up with something all your own, this stuff sort of sticks in your subconscious. Like Steve said, the archetype and the mythos of it all. And like Batman, these stories, these characters, these writers of the past, they have also inspired us. And because Batman is, as we've all pointed out, this human level character, we can relate to that. And that becomes an endless fount of inspiration, because we all know what it's like to deal with an injury, with an illness, with loss, with grief, with heartache, with pain, with joy even. There are times when Batman is very grateful for things that have happened in his life. Being able to save somebody, being able to turn somebody around. That's another aspect of Batman that often gets overshadowed generally, that he works very hard to reform criminals who are capable of being reformed. So that's where we get the humanity back, the humanity that Frank Castle lost to his vengeance. Batman hasn't lost that. And that's a wonderful thing to see in the character.
What was it you wanted, Mr. Vane? I wanted revenge. Dun, 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 dun. That's such a tight moment. Oh my God. So now we're going to talk about, and after that, then we're going to do our favorite moments. You guys got film and stuff. We're going to do our favorite moments for Kevin. But who are your favorite Batman villains and why? Pick three. So I'll tell you my favorite three. My favorite three, number one is Mr. Freeze, Clayface, and Two-Face. The reason I like Mr. Freeze is because he's fighting for the exact same reason that Batman is. It just amazes me. That's Batman's biggest flaw as a character, by the way, same as Superman's, which is self-righteousness. Because they can put on a costume and fight crime, but you have to do it their way. Which is amazing to me because you're both operating outside of the law. But Mr. Freeze does what he does for the exact same reason that Bruce does what he does. And so, again, I do think you guys' point is well taken that Batman is so multidimensional. Writing a good villain, the villain is supposed to be a reflection of the hero. The antagonist is supposed to want the same thing the protagonist does. They just go about it in a different way. And it speaks to the complexity of Batman's character, that he can have all those roles. But yeah, it's because I don't understand sometimes how Batman can even fight Victor. I know Victor's wrong, and I know he hurts people in his quest, but the motivation is identical. That's number one. Number two, the reason I like Clayface is because he's the opposite of Batman in that Bruce's identity as Batman was born when his parents died, and Clayface can't hold on to his face, can't hold on to his identity. He can't hold on to his human anchor. It takes a strong force of will just for him to have corporeal or humanoid form, because depending on what part of his origin you subscribe to, he's always fighting, trying to keep a shape. And so Clayface feels humanity running away from him all the time. And that just intensely fascinates me, because what would you do? What would you do if you used to be a handsome actor and then you turn into this amorphous thing that's not even a man? And it takes all of your mental concentration to have the form of a man. That fascinates me. Number three, Two-Face. The reason I like Two-Face is because Two-Face is dealing with tragedy, little scarring, acid brain dissolvement, mental illness, whatever it is that you want to say. But he's got the same obsession, same compulsion that Bruce does. He's got the same thing where he picked a motif that defined him and he can't let it go, even when he wants to. Even when he wants to. That was one of the things about in Mask of the Phantasm when Bruce had to accept that he couldn't get away from the bat. He thought he could. And every time he thinks he can, there are several episodes where he has a relationship, like the one where he's dealing with Poison Ivy's plant woman. And he says, I'm not going to be Batman anymore. And everybody's like, sure you aren't. Anyway, so, those are the ones that fascinate me. So let me hear your top 3 favorite Batman villains and why. Start with Al.
All right, here we go. This is very simple. I'm a horror fan, so I love Professor Pig.
Yes.
That's a sick mother right there. Love that. So that's a very cool horror aspect of Batman to go to show that, he's not just a superhero handling, regular type of crime. Feel me? So, and that also leads into my next type of shit, because if you want that traditional type stuff, when they talk about rogues villains, I like to think as the mafia of Gotham as a whole villain. I mean, all of the families, dude. I mean, that brings out that detective noir side of Batman like no other. I think, especially when the mob stories are involved, it's some shady shit. Drugs, it's murders. Why are people getting hit? What's going on? Is it new weaponry? What are these guys up to? Some of the best Batman stories do come out, I believe, out of that noir mob type feel, and it's very natural for me, for Batman, to see him in that type of environment. And then lastly, where was that? I was looking up the Brother Eye. There you go. I'm a big Jack Kirby fan.
Oh, that's an interesting pick.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because you think of Brother Eye then, it was something of the future. Then you go back into, not too long ago, but maybe it was. You kind of find out, shit, Batman is the creator of Brother Eye. So this is this robot that's, the satellite that's going to be responsible for a DC version of an uploadable Captain America, if you will, because that's what the whole intent was. Pretty cool shit. So I love Brother Eye because he created that Army Omax in that storyline during the New 52, I believe.
Yeah.
I love that whole sci-fi take. So look, I just gave you 3 different things. I gave you horror, I gave you noir, and I gave you sci-fi. Look at everything that Batman can do. There's still so much more, but I gave you 3 different tastes of the awesomeness of Batman and how awesomely it could be used.
Man, I love that so much because, we don't think of Batman being fallible most of the time, and here he created a villain on the scale of Ultron.
Exactly, through Brother Eye. Yeah.
That's right. That's a really good point. Steve, top 3 favorite Batman villains and why?
I'm going to have to start with my all-time favorite, Ra's al Ghul. And the thing with him is that, like Batman, he is the patriarch of his family. He is somebody who is in many ways like Bruce, in the sense that they're driven for similar reasons. This is somebody who wants to save the world from itself. In this case, he wants to save it from the destruction that caused by humanity. But unlike Bruce, he has the same will, the same skills, the same drive. But the thing is, they're in different directions from Bruce. And because he employs assassins, he's willing to kill people to achieve what he wants to do. He's willing to destroy a large percentage of humanity to achieve what he thinks are good ends. And in addition to that, I just love the fact that he has the whole relationship with Talia, and then Damian, which complicates everything. So here you have these 2 rival families, and they're connected because of, I don't know if it's like exactly a marriage or whatever, but in many ways it's like that. When Bruce fights Ra's, she's fighting his father-in-law, who he has a lot in common with, but they can never agree on anything because their goals are completely different. And in every other way, including drive, they're the same. So they will never give up on their respected schemes. and plus Ra's al Ghul is immortal, and I find immortals fascinating. And I will also say as an addition that he's also a character with pulp roots, and I think that really works for Batman because he is based on Fu Manchu. And so because of that, I just think it's something really interesting about Batman fighting fellow pulp villains or fighting villains based on pulp archetypes. So much like Batman is the Shadow, Ra's is Fu Manchu. And I think that really works. And that leads into my second choice, which is Bane. Bane's archetype is that he is a twist on Doc Shadow. I'm sorry, on Doc Savage.
Yeah.
And I kind of like, but what I think makes him interesting is that he is the opposite of Bruce in the respect that Bruce started off, with loss and being extremely wealthy, and Bane started off being in a prison, but suffering that same sense of loss because he never knew who his father was. He was trapped in a prison in Santa Prisca for his father's crime, for the crime of who it turns out was King Snake. And then his mother died. And so, he is devoted in many ways to his own cause, which is the conquest of crime. And I just find that really, really fascinating. He even has his own crew, like the Doc Savage Band of Iron, which you don't see them very often, but I just find that really interesting. And in addition to this is a guy who is a top planner like Batman. And he's also really, really strong because of all that life spent in prison, as well as, the taking of the venom, which I think is another thing that adds to him. Like he's constantly fighting that addiction, which fuels his aggression. And so, you have Bane, who is capable of breaking the bat, and doing so more than once. I mean, this is a character who can physically take Batman and win, in addition to being on the same level mentally, and I love that. So I just love these villains that are capable of fighting Batman physically, and are also at the same time schemers on a level that can keep Batman on his toes, which was just another one. As for my last pick, I would go for Mr. Freeze, because this is a character who has a lot of motivations, the same as Batman does. The thing is, he's trying to save his family, whereas Batman is trying to fill the hole from the loss of his family. And so Mr. Freeze is a very sympathetic villain, but he's also extremely smart because he created the cryo suit and the cryo gun and all of these other weapons. And yeah, so I find those would be the three that I would go with. I think they're the most compelling, interesting characters, at least for me.
Okay, cool. Johnny, top three Batman villains.
Top three Batman villains. I don't like horror. Horror genuinely scares me if it's done really, really well. I mentioned how back in the day when I was a kid, Batman comics used to scare me, right? So I'm going to go with, are you ready? Mr. Whisper.
Oh.
From the Grant Morrison Legends of the Dark Knight book, Gothic.
Like
that
it.
guy scared the living bejeebus out of me. And bearing in mind, when I read this, what's this, 89? So I must have been about 28 at the time. Still scared me. I was like, are you kidding me? Every month this book would come out, I would have to read that book first just to get like the whole idea of this dude with no shadow out of my head, So I was like, the other thing, we mentioned it before in the Batman's a Vigilante. I actually quite like it when he's against the GCPD.
Yeah, that's fine too.
Yeah, you take Commissioner Gordon out of the arena, and GCPD actually hate him. And that scene in Mask of Phantasm, for example, where he's getting chased down by Bullock and almost gets caught. Your heart is in your throat. You're like, oh my god, they're going to get him. They're going to get him. That whole idea that he has, this whole. He's got Gordon on his side, but that's it. Generally speaking, and then the other one, I've got to go for the sex appeal, man. It's got to be Catwoman, because Catwoman represents all that he could have, but all that he doesn't have.
No, that's Andrea. Batman and Catwoman like the chase. They could have been married. They do get married on Earth too.
I hear what you're saying, but Andrea's not DC Comics. Catwoman is.
But I'm saying she's more the life you could have had to me.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
They love running around the rooftops doing all what they doing. They love that.
Batman turns around and
people can't be tied down. Some people just don't want that kind of life.
You just need bigger straps. That's all I'm saying. So the Catwoman, Batman has to turn. He has that point. He has to turn a blind eye to what she does, and then that causes that that friction in his own psyche. We talked a little bit about Daredevil, about I've got to do the right thing, but it's not the right thing. That's exactly the same. That's what Catwoman presents to Batman. That whole deviation from the whole. I want to do the right thing, but I'm thinking with the wrong part of my body right now.
Yeah, man, the wrong head.
I'm gonna throw you all in jail except maybe her.
Batman is whipped. Are you saying Batman is whipped, Johnny?
I'm not saying he's whipped, but
Catwoman does use a whip quite often.
But the dude likes his kitty cat. That's all I'm saying. The dude likes his kitty cat.
He ain't whipped. He's whooped.
Wow.
As an honourable mention, I would like to say that the Penguin as the gangster at the Iceberg Lounge really interests me with the semi-legitimate business rather than the waddling bird that you see from the Batman 66 show. That would be my honourable mention. But there you go.
Well, always remember, penguins don't quack.
Yeah.
So
what you're saying is if it walks like a duck, it talks like a duck, it's a penguin. Got it. Cool.
I'm not going to let y'all get me started on Damien because we're going to be here too long. If y'all let me get started on Damien. I'm the only person on earth that loves Damian Wayne, and I don't care what nobody thinks.
No,
I'm the only person.
I dig Damien.
I love Damien. All these people talking about, hey man, we want it. I'm like, no, I like Damien.
No, I don't mind Damien. Jason Todd, I could do without Jason Todd in a heartbeat.
Yeah, he's disposable. He keeps proving that.
You think that, he's not disposable in today's day and age. He's recyclable.
Oh man, you are the Robin that
dies. Clean energy.
Yeah, that was a burn.
A Robin that dies. Bracy, top 3 favorite Batman villains and why?
Because I know I've got an honorable mention, so let me consider this here. Who I want to put where. I'm going to start with Ra's al Ghul. Ra's al Ghul is everything Batman could have been if he'd come out maybe just a little bit different. Because there's this wonderful moment when Superman decided to stop sleeping and he decided he was going to patrol the world 24/7. He started to realize, if I'm living like a human, I can't save everything. But with all this power, if I really devote myself to watching the world, if I build up my army of Superman robots, I can save everybody all the time. So he stepped away from his humanity, and the League was all kind of like, ugh. And they all turned to Batman, Batman, what do you think? And Batman was very honest. He said, I'm tempted to go with him. So Ra's al Ghul is the Batman who goes off with Superman to save the world in spite of itself. And and the fact that he is immortal, that he can keep being resurrected by the Lazarus pit, gives him a long view that few Batman villains will ever have. And so he's meticulous, he's cunning, he's incredibly physically capable, he's a genius, and all the worst case scenarios, Batman, he's Batman's Moriarty plus. And I dig that so much out of the character. And like Steve said, I love the sticky situation of the relationship with Talia, because this is where Batman again crosses his own lines. He sets these boundaries, but he's willing to bend his own rules. And according to if you watch the Bride of the Demon or the Daughter of the Demon, I forget which particular book it was.
Daughter of the Demon, I think.
Yeah. She proclaims that by the tenets of her country, Batman and she are indeed wed. All it takes is an agreement between the two parties. Obviously, Batman doesn't hold to that because he did try to marry Catwoman. Yeah, but I'll say right here, Catwoman was wrong for him. I ship Batman and Talia. That's the way it should go.
Me too.
He should. I like John Byrne's future.
As long as it's Denny O'Neill's Talia, not Grant Morrison's.
Agreed. I like John Byrne's future story where Batman eventually does take over Raish's operation and slowly turns it into a legitimate life-saving peacekeeping organization. That's kind of the canon future I see for Batman at one point if he doesn't get killed or retired. I like that idea a lot because he's already there are certain times in the comic books where he does build this kind of global network of heroes and allies and agents and that sort of thing. So yeah, Ra's al Ghul. Second pick. Oh shoot. It just kind of jumped out of my head talking about Ra's. Who did I have? Because there's
please don't say Joker.
No, I won't say the Joker for this reason. Joker's written very inconsistently. This is one of the reasons why they gave us the story of the three Jokers.
I was going to say there's three of them after all.
And that's the way they write it. But it was a clever idea to explain why the Joker is the way he is and why when you could easily just chalk it up to him going through different phases of madness. I personally always like the idea that the Joker's not actually insane. He's just so damn smart. He's got everybody convinced he's insane so that they don't execute him. So
yeah, but he shouldn't be impervious to harm. Batman could just hit him and hit him and hit him, and he laughs.
Yeah, so maybe he's got one of those abnormal conditions where, like, his maybe the chemical bath deadened his nerves or something like that.
Doesn't feel pain.
Yeah. So there would be that sort of thing. But yeah, I won't pick the Joker because I don't think he's actually the best villain. He can be, if handled well, an interesting villain, but I don't think he's the best villain. The only thing that made me really interested in Mr. Freeze was the TV show. So I don't know if I want to count him as one of the best because it was the TV show that made him the best, not the comic books. Because what they wrote in the TV show was amazing and heartbreaking, and you empathized even when he's doing terrible things. At least his first outing, you felt like, maybe it wouldn't be so bad if he froze this guy to death because, he's killing his wife effectively. So that's there. I will say, going with the comics, I'll go with number 2. Instead of the Joker, I'm going to say Victor Zsasz. That's interesting. Victor Zsasz, to me, is like Michael Myers without the supernatural powers. He is just pure evil in human form. I love the way, I forget the Bragelfoyle used to draw him. And he would draw him with like these overshadowed eyes, and all you would see were like these white dots sometimes. And so it was almost like looking at the Spectre, where he's got the black eyes and just the little skulls in there. And so that the idea was like you were just seeing this evil thing, and he wears his crimes on his flesh. And just having Batman deal with somebody who is so irredeemable, and I can't even say that he's insane like the Joker. He just really loves killing people. Now you can qualify that as insane, but I prefer to qualify that as evil. And that puts Batman in a position where I think, like, you probably should just kill this guy because anytime he gets out, somebody's dying. And you should, there's no rehabilitating this guy. Bruce, if nothing else, ought to run for office and get some laws changed. Bring the death penalty to Gotham. Why the hell don't they have a death penalty in that town? That's insane.
What I'm saying? That's my problem. Just kill the shit out of Joker and he's done.
Yeah, a lot of those guys should just be dead. That insanity plea only goes so far. When you start getting the triple digits of victims, like, can we just kill this guy already?
The problem.
I find Batman's dilemma with Victor Zsasz interesting, and I'm always fascinated by the concept of pure evil in human form. What does that look like? How does that act out? Yeah.
Did you read? Oh, you will have read. Everyone's read Hush, right?
Believe it or not, I actually haven't read Hush yet.
Right, okay. So
I know it's a cardinal sin. I have not yet read Hush.
No, it's fine. There's a bit in Hush. Where Batman makes a decision. He is going to beat the living life out of the Joker.
Oh, now I did see that part. I did read that part.
And he doesn't do it. He gets stopped.
Because Gordon stops him.
And that's the reason why there's no capital punishment in Gotham City.
Oh, I just realized what I didn't read. I did read Hush. What I didn't read was The Long Halloween.
Oh, there you go. So the reason there's no capital punishment in Gotham City is because everybody is human and humans make mistakes. And once you kill a person for doing a crime, and then 20 years later you find out, hey ho, they didn't do it, like the Joker didn't shoot Tommy Elliott, then you know what you've got? A dead person and the killer's still at large.
Yeah, but he did shoot Commissioner Gordon's wife.
Yeah,
he did shoot Barbara. So
yeah,
he did blow up a school full of kids. He did.
GCPD would have taken him out by now.
All I'm saying is that Batman's beating him up not because he did any of that stuff. He's beating him up because he killed Tommy Elliott. That's the thing. That's the thing in Hush. So, and we all know that the Joker didn't do that. So Batman is on the edge of actually making a huge mistake, killing a character. And you can say that he's past crimes.
I feel like that applies more to Batman because Batman. I've seen some writers express that Batman doesn't kill because he feels like if he starts killing, he'll just never stop, and then you get BVS Batman. It's just like you guys are all going down.
I suppose
I'll brand you with my branding iron. Let them kill you in jail.
They did that storyline on Titans. They just didn't do it well.
It's a little bit real world for a conversation about comic books, but that's
I remember who the other guy is now.
Capital punishment doesn't work. Is that capital punishment is once you make that ultimate choice, once you take a life, you guys will have had as many mistaken guilties that we've had over here in the UK. Once you turn around and say someone's guilty and therefore you kill him because he's guilty, then lo and behold, you find out 20 years later he was innocent or they were innocent. There's nothing you can do. What are you going to do? Offer money?
Yeah, but we also give him like 20 years of appeal, so there's time. Sometimes there's never going to be a perfect system. But regardless, getting back to the point. Yeah, I'll go with again an animated character and a comic book character. Because now that tangent just drew it out of my head again. Damn it, Johnny, get me on these tangents. Okay, I do remember the animated one. One that I found really interesting was the Clockwork King.
Oh shit! Yeah,
I love that guy. I love the fact that he was a challenge for Batman because he had the ultimate sense of timing. He understood how the city worked in a way that even Batman didn't know. Like there's this great line in the Man of Steel written and drawn by John Byrne where Superman and Batman have this first encounter and Batman lets go of his bat line and Superman turns to find him and he's like, he can't find Batman with all of his super senses and everything. He's like, what? Nothing said he could turn invisible, and Batman reveals himself like invisibility can be a matter of matchless knowledge of the city. Like Batman's like, Superman's like, that was good. That was really good, man. So Clockwork King takes that to a level that even Batman didn't have. And I love that idea so much. Some of my favorite Batman villains are those intellectual villains. I like either the really intellectual villains or I like the really wounded villains, like what they did with Mr. Freeze. If I can, I kind of wish the series had used him more, or maybe they would pick him up a bit more in the comic books, because I think Clockwork King has a lot of potential.
Well, when your eyes are the hands of the clock and your name is Tempest Fugit, I mean, what else can you be? Okay, so let's get to showing our tributes. You guys have some video tributes or some stuff you want to show? Okay, so let's go around and show those.
I know, Johnny, go ahead, but you got that birthday joint? We want to get.
Let's have a look, see what I have. I'm sure I have something. Right, so my stepson and stepdaughter got me this for my 49th birthday, which is a couple of years ago, in the middle of lockdown, and it is pretty much.
They bought you a FaceTime with him?
They absolutely totally did.
That's amazing.
I'm not going to play the whole thing because it gets a bit soppy sentiment. I'll cry and all that sort of stuff. But I thought I'd play this bit for you because you know what? It's Kevin doing what Kevin does best.
You're going to add the audio.
We're going to need more audio.
You can't hear that?
You forgot to add the audio, I think, at the button at the bottom.
You can, but it's really quiet.
Where do I have the audio? Someone help me out.
Where's your box at? Let me see. I think you have to remove it and then put it back. And then before you put it back, check the box on the bottom left-hand corner.
Bottom left-hand corner. Do I want to share a video file then? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you're going to share the video. Yep. And then in the bottom corner, you're going to see it says share audio. And that box that comes up.
Have patience, audience. We're a bunch of boomers here.
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't have
a lot of hoops. How come they don't just have a button and make it loud?
Yeah.
I don't have that. I don't have a button that says make it loud.
That's strange. But go ahead and add it. That's the man. I got something that has audio.
Well, this has audio, and generally speaking, normally I play these all the time on the various shows. So
let's see.
There we go. Let's see if
I can hear your computer.
That's not my computer.
Or somebody's computer.
I don't hear anything.
I hear him, but it's incredibly faint.
Well, that sucks. Well, I got something then, Johnny. Well, I'm going to put mine, which we're actually going to hear. So it's just short. There's two things I actually want to show. We could probably end the show on that last one because the last one is I found on Twitter on someone's website. They're speaking what Kevin was speaking about that person's loss, grandparents. So that's touching. But I also got to meet him back at 2019 in New York Comic Con at the round table. So allow me to put. You can watch everything on YouTube. I'm just going to play something real short so you can see the man himself.
Hello, Mr. Conroy.
Hi, guys.
What's going on?
I play Batty. Batson. Hello, everybody.
Hello, sir.
So Batman drinks tea, is that?
Batman's a big tea drinker.
Alfred taught him, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Mr. Conroy. We're 20 years deep on Batman Beyond. How do you feel about that? I mean, after doing the Batman animated series and all.
Where did the time go? You know, it's that thing where you turn around and you think, I've been doing this for 27 years. That's not possible.
Wow.
It just goes so fast. You know, it's like life. You put one foot in front of the other, and you're so into putting your feet down that you don't realize how many miles you've run. You know what I mean? So I feel very lucky to have been given the opportunity to play the character and to have it resonate with the audience the way it has. And because of that, I've been asked to do it again and again and again.
Yeah, we heard somebody's going to be Batman again in live action.
Well, Bruce Wayne
Bruce Wayne live action.
80-year-old Bruce Wayne.
What was your reaction when...
Get off my lawn.
Get out of my back. What was your reaction when they offered you that role?
Oh, I was ecstatic. I was so happy. But I said to the producer, I said, I know you know my voice, but do you know what I look like? I don't look 80, you know. I can sound 80, but I don't. And they said, no, we know what you look like.
They said,
we know what we're casting. They said, we think you look 80 just fine.
That's just a small little clip. I mean, you can see his energy is so happy and a humble dude, right?
Yeah. Humble and gentle. Yeah.
And the thing is here, that's true. I mean, walking, for so long to achieve these goals. So it's been a long journey. And at that point, it was just 27 years. So it's like, wow.
It's so funny because I don't think I've ever actually heard him speaking in his own voice before.
Really?
So, yeah, I've actually seen him like doing his Batman voice in a little clip. So it's weird hearing the man behind that really cool stern voice.
Yeah, you don't expect
it's very different
to sound normal, that's for sure. All right, guys, we're going to call it there. We obviously have a million more things we could talk about.
Yeah, but hold on. Let me do the one thing here about the loss, that, because I think this is again resonates for today. We lost him, but look at how he thought about death, as he spoke to this, sent this message to this person.
Hey, Maddie. This is Batman, calling you from Wayne Manor. Now, Sissy told me that you're a big fan of Batman, and I really appreciate that. She also told me that your grandmother's passing. I'm so sorry to hear that. You know, I sat with both of my parents on separate occasions as they passed. And the thing to remember is their spirit lives on. The body is just a vessel. And you really see that when someone passes. So your grandmother will always be with you. Her spirit will always be in you. The people we love are always with us. So this is a shout out for you, Maddie. I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman. And remember, Maddie, it's not who you are underneath. It's what you do that defines you. Good luck.
Oh my F.
Okay. All right. Can't take it. Can't take it.
Yeah.
Just can't.
I'll
take
also add that Conroy does a lot of the lines from the movie Batman better than they do.
Yeah. He read Bale's lines at one time, and he was like, you know,
and
what
even
do I know?
Pattinson's, he's done Pattinson's.
When he read Bale's lines, wait a minute. When he read Bale's lines, you finally understood what the fuck he was saying.
Yeah.
You guys all look up Mark Hamill at a con one time saying, "Why so serious?" It's a wonder to behold.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can't be perfection, and you can't be better than the GOAT. And Kevin Conroy is indisputably the greatest of all time.
They'll ever do it.
You know, I've just said it this week. You can have definitive versions. There's nothing wrong with having definitive versions. Okay. But when you raise your level of excellence to the point where you become synonymous with the character, where you no longer, you know, can even separate the actor from the character, they are them. And Conroy is always going to be Batman. And I just feel grateful that I got to be alive at a time to see him create all that body of work.
Yes.
Trying to explain this to someone younger or someone who's just now coming on the scene, or you know, geek children being born that are going to grow up. You can't even make people understand the impact of this man's work and the impact of his character, and how, you know, they say never meet your heroes. He's the biggest exception in the book. Everybody that met him left feeling more inspired. So, I mean, we have nothing but superlatives for this man, and we mourn his death and celebrate his life. And I feel like we're all glad to have known him, experienced him, been alive at a time where he could do what he did. And I think we're the better for it.
And I'd like to add to that, it's not just as Batman, but also as Bruce Wayne. I keep coming back to that moment in Mask of the Phantasm where Bruce actually has a chance to be happy. And he's pleading with the ghosts of his parents, metaphorically, at their graves. It's like, I didn't know that it could stop hurting. And then when that hope gets taken away from him, the guy was a total package. He had the whole range.
Yep.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. All right, guys. Any final comments you want to throw out before we sign off?
Yes, our condolences to the family. Thank you, Kevin, for everything. We love you. God bless, man.
Agree.
Yeah. Thanks for all the wonderful years, man.
You were the best ever. You were the best ever. There's nobody who's going to replace you, and I don't think anybody should try this. He just was Batman on another level.
Agreed. There we go. All right, David, close it up.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank all my guests. Thank you so much, Johnny.
You're welcome anytime.
Thank you so much, Al, the godfather of Comi Crusaders. Thank you so much, Jeff.
Glad I can make it, guys. I'm glad I could be a part of this.
Thank you so much, Steve.
Yeah, I'm happy to celebrate the life of somebody who brought so much joy to so many people.
So, like I said in the opening, we're Always glad to be together, but sorry that it's such a sad occasion. But we're going to learn, we're going to move on, we're going to stay inspired, and we're going to honor his legacy by being better heroes ourselves. Don't forget to check out all the content we have on United Capes Podcast Network and Comi Crusaders. We literally have something for everybody. We've got retro shows. They still have a bonus Halloween horror show. We've got interviews with artists. So everything that you would want to geek out on, we have it in Comi Crusaders. And I will see you with my regular crew on Tuesday for the next regularly scheduled episode of Sloppy Spoilers.
Woo! Later, people.
Adios.
Take care.